Namaste. I'm out for a morning walk here. So as I go to my breakfast place, I want to thank you for all your questions. They're wonderful. They really help me to understand where you're at and where you're strong, where you're weak, and where your confusions are. And also just to bring up the perennial questions that arise again and again that deserve to be discussed over and over again. The fundamentals, the real important basic things. So all of that was there in these recent questions. And so it led me to see that I really need to go over these 4 divisions or classifications of religious or spiritual work and realization. So we're all born animals, pashu, little sociopathic, body intoxicated rebels running around doing all kinds of mischief. And then as soon as we become aware of God and the need to approach God, and we graduate and become actual human beings. However, the platform of dualistic religion begins, at almost animal state. So whether we're Christians or Muslims or Buddhists or Hindus or whatever, the lowest state is going to be very materialistic, violently passionate, deluded, mistaken about so many things, and lead to so many bad activities that create suffering. But the one good thing about it is, finally, there is some relationship with God, and usually from our side, that is a whole long list of stuff that we want. Dear God, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz, So, this is a childish, selfish stage. But in the end, something like respect, something like filial affection, begins to develop out of the performance of ritualistic religious duty. And that can lead us higher. That can bring us closer, specifically to the next stage, bhakti, vishishta dvaita. Finally, with the dawning of love, begins the possibility that, actually, we are one. Actually, I and God are non-different. And the Vishishta Dvaita philosophy acknowledges this in all of its flavors. But in practice, the dualists become fixated on the dualistic aspect and kind of forget about the oneness aspect, which is really too bad. And it leads to all kinds of ugly, nasty behavior, like here in the holy place where I live. There's no Hare Krishna temple, no ISKCON temple. And why is that? Well, when the ISKCON devotees came here, they showed up as being not very sociable. They don't want to mix with anybody, but they want to impose their views on everyone. That's not very mature, So they were asked to leave. Just like certain teachers who claim to represent Ramana's teaching but actually don't. They simply get politely asked to leave, by a large troop of officials and police officers. So there's a protection in living in a high holy place, which is that the worst nonsense rascals are not allowed to show up. So when one gets beyond that stage and starts to love God, actually, not just formally or in the form of an organization, but really, one internalizes the rituals and the values, the spiritual values taught in the Vishishtadvaita stage. In the Dvaita stage, and makes them spontaneous and natural. In other words, one becomes the devotee instead of merely acting like a devotee externally. And when that happens, so when I was in the religious stage, I was an Episcopalian, which is like the next thing to being Catholic. In fact, as an Episcopalian, I can go in any Catholic church and take communion perfectly legally, no problem. So we were like, next to bowing down to the Pope, we were, for all practical purposes, Catholics. And that led to a real problem, because then we couldn't recognize the truths of any other religions. And that led to me breaking off my relationship with the church and becoming a yogi, because a yogi accepts the universality of truth. If you look, just like if you look anywhere, the speed of light is c, If you look anywhere, the ratio of the radius to the diameter, circumference of the circle is pi. Wherever, any planet you go. So these are universal truths, and the existence of God and necessity to worship God is like that too. So once you internalize that, and then you see it in everything, it's a case of pareidolia again. Remember pareidolia from the last video, 2-3 videos ago? Once you accept that mindset, once you embrace that ontology, then you will project it and overlay it and superimpose it on everything and everyone. So, in the next stage, one internalizes that drama of seva between the devotee and God, and raises it to a new level of creativity and uniqueness in one's personal relationship with the Absolute. So then what happens? Once one gets to the upper ranges of bhakti, then spontaneously one starts to get visions of this oneness, that I and God are one. This is not something, in authentic Advaita, it's not something that one seeks out based on some theory. No, it's a quest driven by the need to understand one's own experience. And if you've had the experience of oneness, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, there's no way you can. You can have the intellectual conviction that it's all one, okay? But that's not the same thing. And that's another difference between Neo-Advaita and real Advaita. Neo-Advaita is an intellectual conception only. Authentic Advaita is driven by a need to understand certain inner experiences, rare, deep experiences. So that sadhana consists of, instead of imagining a so-called eternal relationship with God, which is all fine in its place, one then begins to go through and throw out everything in the mind. Neti. This is not it, that's not it, the gross body's not it, subtle body's not it, desire isn't it, hatred isn't it, fabrication definitely is not it, and so on and so on and so on, until there's nothing left, literally nothing left. And that's shunyata, okay? Now, this is not the goal. This is only a stage. So don't get all upset and start calling us voidists. It's only a stage, a step in the process, because the next thing that happens is that Brahman shows up, boing, spontaneously in this huge empty space. You make a space that's so big that the whole creation just disappears, shrinks down to a dot and then gets lost somewhere. And guess what happens? Boom! Brahman comes and fills it up effortlessly with light. Infinite space filled with infinite consciousness, full of infinite beauty and love. Knowledge, Satchitananda. Okay, when you experience that, then you know, okay, Sarva Kalvidam Brahman. Everything is Brahman, and including especially myself. So now the thing is to realize it. And once again, the process of realization has to become internalized. Just like in bhakti, when it becomes spontaneous. And then you will realize, okay, I am actually Brahma. Aham Brahmasmi, Tat Brahmasi, you are also that. So how do you realize it? Well, when a process like puja turns into an attitude, like rati, these are bhakti terms I'm using now, rati and rag, and raganuga, following the rag, the emotional attachment. Like, where would I place, for example, Hare Krishna on this 4-part scale? I would say they're at the upper end of Dvaita. And where would I place Sufism? The Sufism is at the upper end of Vishishta Dvaita. Where would I place Rajneesh? I'd place him at the beginning of Vivarta. And he covers a little bit of everything, but not in any kind of systematic way. And Ramana, well, of course, he's in Ajata. And also Mahapariyava. So when these realized souls teach, they have to descend. And so Ramana descends to the Vivartavada platform, and Mahapariyava descends to the Vishishtadvaita platform. But that doesn't mean they're not Ajatavadis. They are. It's just that their particular mission, their individuality is to help the maximum amount of people in the world. They have the power, so they're trying to use it responsibly. Anyway, where would I put where I am right now? I think I'm kind of in the upper range of Vivartavada. I've seen everything. I'm not there all the time. But I think that's just a matter of time, because once you've seen, you can't unsee. And this is way beyond even the 4th path of the Buddha, which is like the culmination of Raja Yoga. So it must be the entrance into Ajata. You know, on my good days I can stay there all day. But anyway, now I'm going out to have breakfast. So I really appreciate your questions. They inspire me. They move me, really, to make these the best presentations that I can. So do keep coming. I want this to be a dialogue, not a monologue. I'm not here exactly to lecture you, but to answer your doubts. So you have to expose your doubts, then I can do my job. Om Tat Sat. Om Harihi Om.